Okay, welcome to the deep dive. So today we're really getting into something huge, a topic that affects, what, half the people on the planet? Women's health. But it's often treated like, I don't know, some kind of mystery or like a niche product. It's strange.
It really is an incredible disparity, yeah.
Yeah.
And looking at the sources you sent over, I mean, we're talking 4 top experts here, right? What, 80 years combined experience? And the core message, the truth that just jumps out is that, well, the whole medical system was basically built around male physiology
Yeah.
and the impact that has on women. It's massive. You can actually measure it.
Yeah, profound is the word. So our mission here for you listening is really to shortcut you straight to the heart of it. We're going to unpack the essentials from these experts, cycles, hormones, things like endometriosis, PCOS, and then the longer view perimenopause, longevity, basically the stuff every single person needs to know.
Definitely. And I think we have to start with the research gap. It's just staggering. We're talking huge amounts of money, right? Like $450 billion spent on research in the U.S., but less than 1% is focused specifically on women over 40.
Less than 1% for 51% of the population. It's hard to even wrap your head around that.
That makes no sense. We're treated like a side market.
And this isn't just numbers on a page, right? It hits health outcomes directly. Like, women live longer, yes, about 6 years longer on average than men. But the catch is huge. We suffer longer. We spend something like 20% more of our lives dealing with poor health, chronic diseases, mental health issues compared to men.
Yeah, that longer life comes with a real cost in terms of quality of life. And the root, it's this deep historical bias. Medicine, science, they just studied the male body as the default human, period. Is it actually unbelievable that women weren't even required in clinical studies until 1993?
1993? That's so recent.
It is. And even after 93, lots of studies still excluded women. The excuse, oh, the hormonal cycle's just too complicated.
Wow. Just sideline half the population because it's inconvenient. And this isn't just dusty old history, is it? It gets baked into how doctors are trained. The sources talked about this really jarring concept, this systemic bias, where, vague complaints from women, especially middle-aged women, might get dismissed, sometimes with really awful labels like the whiny woman or WW.
Or regionally, things like total TBD, total body dolor, which basically meant this woman has aches and pains everywhere and we don't know why.
It's like a medical shrug, right? Too hard basket.
Exactly. And it's so damaging because what happens? Women start to doubt themselves. They hear that message, maybe implicitly, and they downplay their own symptoms. They worry they won't be believed. So they end up thinking, oh, I just have a high pain tolerance. They wear it like a badge.
Yeah, I've heard that so many times, the high pain tolerance badge.
And what does that lead to? Delayed diagnosis. They don't seek help until things are really, really bad. It's self-gaslighting, reinforced by the system.
Okay, so the systemic bias is clear. Let's drill down deeper. Why is separate research actually necessary? What are the physiological differences beyond the obvious organs?
Oh, it goes way beyond organs, right down to the cellular level. Your chromosomes, XX versus XY. Every single cell expresses those genes differently.
Every cell?
Every cell. So, for example, XX cells, they're actually better at making cartilage and muscle. Helps explain some aspects of female endurance. XY cells, on the other hand, are better at making bone.
That's fascinating. So women naturally have more endurance-type muscle fibers, while men lean towards fast-twitch, power fibers. And men's bones are structurally stronger, can handle more load.
That's right. And these fundamental differences, they totally change how diseases show up. Cardiovascular disease is the classic example.
Okay.
In men, you often see blockages early on in the big arteries. The thing people dramatically call the widowmaker.
Right, the classic heart attack narrative. But for women...
For women, it's often different. The blockages can be more diffuse, spread out. And they frequently affect the microvasculature, the tiny, tiny blood vessels deep inside the heart muscle itself.
So the symptoms would be different then?
Exactly. Which leads to women's heart attack symptoms often being dismissed or labeled as, wait for it, atypical chest pain.
Hang on, atypical. If it's how 51% of the population experiences it, how on earth is that atypical?
Precisely. That's the historical bias right there in the terminology, defining the male experience as the norm and the female experience as the deviation.
It's baked right into the language. Okay, let's shift to hormones. They're often just linked to reproduction, but it's much broader than that, isn't it? They're like the body's messengers.
Totally. Hormones are the body's communication system. They travel everywhere in the bloodstream, sending signals. Take estrogen. Estrogen receptors aren't just in the ovaries, they're everywhere. Brain, gut, bones, muscles, blood vessels, everywhere needs estrogen to function properly.
Which brings us to the menstrual cycle. Why it's so much more than just having a period. It's like a monthly health report card.
It absolutely is. Think of it as a vital sign, like your blood pressure or heart rate.
Mhm.
If you're not using hormonal birth control and your period isn't regular, that's usually a sign of a low estrogen state. And that low estrogen is seriously harmful long term. Bad for your brain health, bad for your bone density. It's a huge red flag the body's under major stress.
Okay, let's break down the cycle phases for listeners just briefly to see how hormones orchestrate things. First half, roughly days 1 to 14, ovulation, that's the follicular phase. Estrogen is king here, right?
Estrogen dominant. And generally during this phase, women tend to feel more focused, maybe better concentration. Performance in workouts might feel stronger, and libido often peaks around ovulation, say day 14.
Then after ovulation, we enter the luteal phase. Now we've got estrogen and progesterone on the scene.
Yep. Progesterone becomes more dominant. Its job is basically preparing the body for a potential pregnancy. So it raises your core body temperature slightly, slows down metabolism a bit. And this is the phase often associated with needing more sleep, maybe feeling more tired, increased appetite, and those mood shifts that can happen just before your period starts.
Okay, and this is where those fitness trackers and wearables can get it really wrong for women, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Big time. Because progesterone does something specific. It naturally increases your resting heart rate. And at the same time, it tends to lower your HRV, your heart rate variability, which trackers use as a key sign of recovery.
Ah, so the tracker sees higher heart rate, lower HRV, and thinks, oh no, poor recovery.
Exactly. The algorithm flags it as bad, but it's just your body doing its normal hormonal thing in the luteal phase. So if you use a wearable, you have to understand that your recovery score might look artificially low in that second half of your cycle. It's likely misleading.
That's such a crucial point for people relying on that data. Okay, let's move into some chronic conditions we got asked a lot about. Endometriosis first. The story shared in the source material about Liv. I mean, 17 years of pain, 7 years just to get diagnosed? That's horrifying.
And tragically, that 7 to 10-year average delay for diagnosis is still pretty typical. It's awful. Endo is this chronic inflammatory disease, often with autoimmune links. Tissue, similar to the uterine lining, grows elsewhere like Velcro, sticking to the bowel, bladder, inside the pelvis, causing immense pain, inflammation, scarring. And crucially, you need surgery, usually a laparoscopy, just to get a definitive diagnosis.
And treatment. The go-to seems to be the birth control pill.
Yeah, that's often the first line. But it doesn't cure it. It can slow the progression, manage symptoms for some, but it doesn't get rid of the underlying disease, which is why women like Liv often face really hard choices down the line, like needing to freeze their eggs before having major surgery to remove endometriomas, which are cysts on the ovaries. It's a long, tough road.
It sounds incredibly challenging, but there was some interesting non-drug data mentioned too about cold water.
Yes, that pilot data is really interesting, showing that cold water exposure, think about 10 degrees Celsius, so pretty cold, for 10 minutes, specifically in the 10-14 days before the period is due. It seems to help dampen that systemic inflammation, potentially improving symptoms quite a bit. It's a great example of using lifestyle factors alongside medical treatment.
Okay, let's switch to PCOS, Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. Affects what, 10% or more of women? The name itself is a bit misleading, isn't it? Makes it sound like it's all about the ovaries.
It really is misleading because for the vast majority, maybe up to 80% of women with PCOS, the root issue is metabolic. It's driven by high insulin levels and insulin resistance. The ovarian issues, like cysts or irregular cycles, are often symptoms of that underlying metabolic problem.
Right, not the cause itself.
Exactly. It's primarily a metabolic disease that affects the ovaries.
And so the older treatments, like just prescribing the pill or Clomid for fertility, they were kind of missing the point.
They were totally missing the underlying metabolic driver. That's why lifestyle intervention is absolutely critical for PCOS. You have to tackle the insulin resistance and inflammation. That means things like a plant-forward, high-fiber diet, getting enough sleep, managing stress, and, super important, building skeletal muscle.
Muscle as a metabolic tool.
Absolutely. Muscle is like a glucose sponge. It's incredibly good at soaking up blood sugar, which reduces the need for insulin. So for women with PCOS, actively working to gain muscle mass can make a huge difference in managing their symptoms long-term. It's proactive.
That's powerful. Okay, the big one, contraception. Specifically the pill. It's incredibly common. Millions use it. But what's the potential long-term trade-off we need to talk about? particularly using it continuously during those really key years, say 15 to 25.
Yeah, this is crucial. So how the pill works, essentially, is it turns off the signals from the brain to the ovaries.
Yeah.
The ovaries basically go quiet. They stop producing your body's own natural estrogen, progesterone, and even testosterone.
Effective contraception, yes.
But those years, roughly 15 to 25, are peak bone-building years. That's when you lay down the foundation for your bone density for the rest of your life.
And you need your own natural estrogen for that process.
Yeah, absolutely do. Estrogen is the key signal telling your bone-building cells, the osteoblasts, to get busy. If you're on the pill continuously during that critical window, you're suppressing that natural estrogen signal. You might not be maximizing your peak bone mass, and that can have real consequences decades later, increasing osteoporosis risk.
So the advice then for women using it in those years is maybe not continuous use, take the break week.
Yes. If using the combined pill, taking that 7-day break each month allows the brain-ovary connection a little bit of a breather, some fluctuation, it's a really important consideration for long-term bone health. That break is kind of non-negotiable from that perspective.
Okay. Pivoting slightly to fertility, let's talk realities. Women are born with all their eggs. That number declines over time, but the biggest loss is actually before puberty.
That's right. The steepest drop happens even before birth and during childhood. But as women age, it's less about the quantity declining, though it does, and more about the quality of the remaining eggs.
Egg quality decline. What causes that?
It's largely down to two things: accumulating chromosomal damage over time and what's called mitochondrial dysfunction.
Mitochondria, the cell's power plants.
Exactly. The egg's mitochondria can become less efficient with age. They don't have enough energy for successful fertilization and healthy embryo development.
And the impact on natural fertility rates is quite stark, isn't it?
It is, and it drops faster than many people realize. At age 30, your chance of conceiving naturally in any given month is around 20%. By age 38, that number drops to about 5% per month. It's a significant decline.
Which is why, given career paths and life choices often mean delaying starting a family, egg freezing comes into the conversation. What's the optimal window for that generally?
Ideally, the earlier the better. But the science points to the late 20s or early 30s being optimal. Getting it done by age 32 seems to be a bit of a key delineation point for preserving good quality eggs and future options.
Important planning info. And we absolutely have to mention the male factor in fertility struggles. It's not just about the woman.
Not at all. Roughly 50% of infertility cases involve male factors. 50%.
But the good news there is that sperm quality can change relatively quickly.
Yes, that's the upside. Sperm has about a 90-day life cycle. So men can often improve their sperm quality significantly in just 3 months. Key things to avoid. Heat is a big one, so no saunas, hot tubs, maybe limit really long cycling sessions, and definitely get out cannabis or marijuana and reduce alcohol intake. Those can have a big negative impact.
Good practical advice. Okay, let's look at the long game now. Perimenopause and longevity. Perimenopause isn't just the year before your period stops, right? It's a much longer transition.
Much longer. It's typically a 7 to 10-year phase leading up to menopause. It often starts in the late 30s or 40s. What's happening is the number of remaining eggs is dwindling, and the ovaries start responding, well, erratically. Hormones fluctuate unpredictably. It's chaos.
And the first signs of this chaos aren't always hot flashes, are they? Often it's mental and cognitive.
Very often, yes. The earliest symptoms can be things like sudden sleep problems, trouble concentrating, memory lapses, maybe new or worsening anxiety, that feeling of, I just don't feel like myself anymore. That's classic early perimenopause. And mental health disorders actually increase by something like 40% during this transition. It's a vulnerable time.
Which leads us to maybe the most shocking statistic from the source material, and it really stopped me in my tracks. The peak age range for suicide risk in women is between 45 and 55.
It's a devastating statistic, and it lines up perfectly with the peak perimenopausal and early menopausal years. That hormonal instability has profound effects on brain chemistry and mood regulation. Then menopause itself, average age around 51, 52, that's defined as when the ovaries have essentially run out of eggs. Ovarian failure, which means a sudden dramatic drop in estrogen and progesterone production.
And the body needs that estrogen, doesn't it? For way more than period.
Absolutely. Brain health, heart health, bone density, blood vessel function, they all rely on estrogen. Losing it abruptly at menopause creates widespread physiological changes and risks.
So, given this reality, this long transition, what's the practical solution, especially thinking about workplaces, daily life?
One word really sums it up: flexibility. Employers and society really need to understand that women's bodies have cycles and undergo major transitions like perimenopause. Trying to force a rigid linear model doesn't work.
So things like,
Well, maybe it's considering things like menstrual leave policies. Or, more realistically, just greater flexibility, like options for a 4-day work week, more work from home opportunities, maybe backup emergency childcare, things that acknowledge life happens, cycles happen, transitions happen. Offering that support. It boosts loyalty, boosts productivity. It's smart business.
it reframes it from a woman's problem to a structural support issue.
Exactly.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, if there's one big takeaway from this deep dive, what is it?
I think it's shifting the focus for younger women and for how we think about health across the lifespan. The real key to navigating perimenopause and having better long-term health is fighting for every single gain when you're young.
Building the reserves early.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You build your peak bone density, your peak muscle mass, mostly between 15 and 25. Every healthy choice then, diet, exercise, managing stress, it's like putting money in the bank. You're maximizing those stores before the inevitable hormonal decline starts later on.
Okay, so here's our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to take away from all this. Maybe the most impactful thing you can do for your long-term health, especially your health decades from now, is something most of us were never told, especially growing up. Forget the pressure to lose weight, to be thin. Instead, focus intensely on gaining power, gaining muscle, gaining bone density now.
Yes, focus on strength, focus on mobility. That's what protects you from the ravages of chronic disease, as one expert put it. That proactive building of strength and resilience. That's the knowledge we all needed years ago. It's the foundation for a healthier future.